Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to the VideoForge.net. Let's jump right into part 2 of this Dragon Ball Z Saiyan Space Pod mini-series. To kick things off, I color-coded the first 5 layers that went along together to keep things looking pretty decent. So, if you want, go ahead and color-code your layers. Let's now add some flair to this composition using Optical Flares. I made a preset of my own to complement the earth, so feel free to download that preset. Let's go to Layer, New Solid, and we're going to go ahead and call this Optical Flares and click OK. Next, we'll go ahead and drop this layer right below the camera. We're going to solo this layer, and in the Effects and Presets, or in FX Console if you have it, type Optical Flares. Go ahead and drop that onto the layer. Now, before we add our preset, we're going to make a few adjustments before actually moving forward. Meaning we're going to line the flare up with the light on top of the earth. So let's go ahead and set the render mode to transparent. And we're going to set the transfer mode to screen. You really don't need to set the render mode to transparent. You just change the blending mode. But if I ever wanted to render out the flares without a background, then that's when I'll go ahead and change the render mode. Let's go ahead and unsolo the layer. I'm going to go ahead and move the flare over the earth just to get a slight visual of what exactly I'm looking for. Many artists would rough sketch something or just batch render something with little to no effects to see if the effects blend well with one another. The flare being set to screen over the edge of the earth looks pretty good, so let's go ahead and move on. Okay, so now we will shut the flares layer off and we'll add a light to work as the guide for the optical flare. So let's choose Layer, New Light, and we're going to go ahead and make this a parallel light. Everything looks good so far, so we'll click OK. What we want to do here is push the parallel light back into Z space just a bit, but not too close to the earth because the flare would look way too small. Now we're creating the illusion that the flare is close to the earth, but we put it between the camera and the earth at a distance so we can animate our space pod moving past the light, causing a light casting like what we have in the original clip. Okay, so let's switch to the top view here, and we're going to zoom out just a bit. I'm also just going to turn off the stars layer for now. Now here we're going to go ahead and move the parallel light further into Z space. Try to move just the position of the light, not the point of interest. We keep that where it is so it can cast lighting over the space pod. So right there is pretty good. Now we'll go ahead and switch back to the active camera. Now let's turn on our optical flares layer, and we're going to change the source type to track lights. Our light flare now connects to the parallel light. Now we'll just need to move it into position. All right, not too bad. Next, we're going to go ahead and change the look of the flare. Remember, I have a preset that I made specifically for this tutorial in the description. So let's open up the options. And here in the preset browser, there are quite a few different variations to work with, but the flare preset that I made will be located in the custom presets. When you download it, all you have to do is just drag and drop it into the folder where the Optical Flares presets are located. So we'll go to Custom Presets, and then we'll go ahead and choose the Earth Flare. And there it is. Now you can actually scale the layer up from the window itself. However, I didn't do that. I actually scaled it up from the Optical Flares settings itself. We'll scale it up nice and big. Then bring down the brightness just a touch. Okay. Now we're going to add a fast box blur so the flare doesn't look too sharp. We'll go ahead and repeat edge pixels, and we're going to keep the iterations at 3, and let's go ahead and change the radius to about 4. Next, we're going to go ahead and add a curves adjustment and bring the brightness down a bit to give your flare a bit of a punch. Now in the flicker settings in the Optical Flares tab, I want the flare to flicker slowly but with more twitch behind that flare. Consider this flare like a bright star with particles and objects crossing over it. We have our space pods crossing over the flare, but we're given the illusion as if particles in the atmosphere, such as asteroids or even just moving clouds over the Earth, are further into the background that you don't even actually see. But they are actually in the way of that bright star, causing it to flicker. Not to mention, when we add some camera movement, we give that feeling as if the flare is causing our lens to be interrupted. And that's what we're going for. So we're going to go ahead and set the speed to about 20, maybe 25. And the amount will bring it to about 75 or so. Let's do a quick render and see how it looks. All right, not bad. Let's go ahead and move on to our first part of camera movement. Now, the first part will be the rotation of the camera. And the second part, which we will see later in the series, will be more subtle camera shake. Okay, so let's select our camera and open up the orientation by tapping R on the keyboard. And at the beginning of the frame, we'll set the Z rotation to 180 degrees. Now, I'm going to explain this whole step in just a moment. We're going to set a keyframe for the orientation at the beginning. We'll move all the way to the end of the frame and set the Z rotation to around 230 or so, maybe 250. We're just placing the Earth on the left side of the frame at an angle, so then we can fill the negative space with our space pods. 242 looks good. Okay, let's render this out and see how it looks. I actually like that. So now let me explain real quick why we place the Earth upside down and then rotating on the left side of the frame. In cinematography, the scene in general represents something unusual. We call this a roll shot. It offers the audience a visceral connection to something unsettling, unusual, or just special. It can also help to show disorientation depending on your scene. So with this scene, we get an unsettling feeling of round spaceships entering Earth's atmosphere. This shot was actually shown in Avengers Infinity War. Check it out. That unsettling feeling that Wakanda is no longer safe with these ships entering the atmosphere. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Let's animate the center position of the flare just to help to add a little bit more life to the scene. So we'll set a keyframe at the beginning for the center position, and we'll go ahead and move to the end of the frame, and we'll push out the center position. Maybe we can go back to the beginning and maybe move the center somewhere else. I think I'll just keep it where it is. All right, let's go ahead and take a look. All right, let's go ahead and save our work and close up shop for today, folks. Stay tuned for part 3 of this Dragon Ball Z Saiyan spaceship tutorial as we finally add our spaceships into frame, more animation, and then we're going to add some simple color correction. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. I just made an Instagram account for the Video Forge. Go ahead and visit our website and then check out the blog as it's updated once a week. Thank you all so much for watching here at the Video Forge. See you all real soon.